Hello, I'm implemented Vslam 1, which is one of the monocular visual slams using a mobile phone camera as a final project. First, I will briefly introduce the necessary notions in computer vision field, such as feature detection and description. And then I will look through the Vslam 1 algorithm with 4 pipelines. Lastly, I will show my experimental results and conclude with troubleshooting. So, let's get started with the definition of feature. The image feature is a region which has maximum variation when moved in all directions. The corners are usually considered to be a good feature in an image since the variation would be maximized as shown in the right picture. So finding this image feature is called feature detection. Once you have found features, you should be able to find the same in the other images. How is this done? It is done by feature description. It takes a region around the feature and explains it in its own words. Now, let's simply look through the FAST algorithm. As shown in the picture, FAST algorithm compares the intensity of pixel P to the intensity of a set of pixels in a small circle around the pixel P. To be more detailed, applying the threshold to the surrounding pixels to classify them as dark, bright, and similar pixels so that the pixels on the small circle must be continuously dark or light. And this continuity decides whether the pixel P is a feature point or not. Next, let's see the brief algorithm, which generates the feature descriptor for a certain feature point. It compares the intensities of pairs of pixels in the area around the feature point and saves the result in binary format. As shown in the picture, if the intensity of blue pixel is brighter than yellow, the result will be 1, otherwise 0. Now, let's see the overview of Vslam 1 structure. It consists of 4 pipelines, which are map initialization, tracking, local mapping, and loop closure. Let's look at the map initialization in more detail. For the first step, initial ORB feature point correspondences are found between a pair of images. And then from it, geometric transformation is calculated to estimate the relative camera pose. Given the relative camera pose and the matched feature points in two images, the 3D locations of the matched points are determined by triangulation. Next is the tracking. It is performed for every frame and determines when to insert a new keyframe. For the first step, ORB features are extracted for each new frame and then matched with features in the last keyframe, and then estimate the camera pose with the perspective endpoint algorithm. Given the camera pose, project the map points observed by the last keyframe into the current frame and search for feature correspondences. And then we can refine the camera pose again by performing a motion-only bundle adjustment. Lastly, we can decide if the current frame is a new keyframe or not. If the current frame in tracking process is a keyframe, we can do the local mapping. It is performed for every keyframe. In this stage, new map points are created by triangulating ORB feature points in the current keyframe and its connected keyframes. The local bundle adjustment refines the pose of the current keyframe, the poses of connected keyframes, and all the map points observed in these keyframes. Finally, let's look at the loop closure. Loop closure process is to try to detect and close the loop by querying images in the database. This method is basically called the bag of words method. Here is my experimental result 1. I recorded a video in room 804 with my cell phone camera and convert it into sequence of image data and then proceed with a Vslam. It seems to follow my trajectory to some extent, but I couldn't measure its performance since ground truth data did not exist. So, in order to measure the performance with the ground truth data, I experimented in room 806 again. I could obtain the ground truth data through a series of OptiTrack motion capture camera. The root mean square of the error between estimated trajectory and the ground truth trajectory was about 0.78 meters. I think this error comes from the limitation of monocular camera, which can't know the depth info exactly. For conclusion, I have summarized the trials and errors experienced during the actual implementation. First, disabling autofocus function on the camera application was necessary because the focal length of camera model should be same all the time. Second, using the low resolution image was required. When I proceed the Vslam with full HD resolution, which is 920 times 180, the algorithm didn't work due to the heavy computation. Third, tuning the design parameter of Vslam was required. When the algorithm works with default scale factor, which was 1.2, it didn't work properly because it causes the lack of the number of calculated 3D map points. Finally, transforming coordinate of OptiTrack data into camera coordinate was required. I calculated the angles of pan P and a tilt T of camera from orientation data of OptiTrack, which was represented with quaternion format. Thank you for listening.